Very big news breaking right at the top of the hour. It's to do with Craig Bellamy. Craig Bellamy informed chairman of the Melbourne Storm, Matt Tripp, last night. He's back. He's coming back next season. He has informed players then at training this morning. Craig Bellamy is on deck with the Melbourne Storm in 2024. So this is not the farewell for Craig Bellamy, which means Dragons, Jason Riles, Anthony Griffin, Brandy, Cameron Smith, welcome to the program. Does that surprise you? You are a man who knows Craig Bellamy better than most. Does it surprise you at all that Craig Bellamy's on deck next year? Good morning, Cameron.
Good morning, fellas. Look, it doesn't surprise me that he's going around again, although I will say I actually thought he was going to finish up this year. So I will say that, but I'm not overly shocked that he's recommitted. He's the type of guy that loves the Melbourne Storm, he loves rugby league, and he loves coaching, so...
He has been teasing us for some time.
He has.
This might be his final year. Hasn't
Yes.
it?
Yes.
Nearly a decade, Cam.
Yep.
I think there was back page story in 2013. This is going to be my final year.
Well,
so he's thought about it for quite a long time. And really, that's 10 years that he's just kept going, and he must love it that much.
Yeah, well, there was actually a couple of occasions throughout my playing career, Brandy, where I'd spoken to him privately. He asked to catch up with me, just for a coffee, and spoke about his thoughts on continuing on as head coach. So you're right there. Like he's contemplated it a few times now, finishing up. But look, yeah, when you're still getting results and the team's still performing for you, I guess that's the reason why you stick around.
Okay, next one now. Cameron Smith, Craig Bellamy locked in for Melbourne next year. Jason Riles, if you're Jason Riles, do you now move on? You don't stick around waiting for the Melbourne job to come up in potentially 2025. Do you jump now and go straight in, headlong into the Dragons job? Would you do that if you were Jason Riles?
Well, from Riles' point of view, I think the Melbourne job would have been ideal for him. He played at the Melbourne Storm and coached at the Melbourne Storm, was very well aware of what the club's about and the people involved, and what type of sort of football that they play. But he's also been involved with the Dragons for a long time, and he's living down in that area at the moment. I think his family, his two little girls are settled into school. So I think that's a huge possibility that he takes that job if he's successful with the meetings that he has with the Dragons hierarchy and whatnot. But close to home, played at a club, very familiar with that organisation. I think it might be a job that he actually would like to go after.
Unless Melbourne are saying, well, hang on, look, Craig's going to go one more, which as we've just discussed, he said that a couple of times. He'll go one more. I guess John Riles can't be hanging around at the Roosters for one more, just in case Craig goes, you know what, I might go around next year too.
Well, that's exactly right, Brandy. There's every possibility that Craig could do that, because we just finished speaking about how he's brought that up a few times about, this will be my last, or I'm about to finish up, and he chooses to continue. I think for a guy like Jason Riles, who now has done a handful of seasons, it's quite a long time now, where he's worked as an assistant coach under Craig Bellamy with Trent Robinson at the Roosters. Now he's done a little bit of time with English rugby as well with Eddie Jones. I think you got to strike while the iron's hot, because an opportunity like a head coach, it may not come up for numerous seasons from now.
That's right.
So you got to take the opportunity while it's there.
Well, but do you, Cameron? Like,
how old's Jason Riles? Early 40s? 43, 44?
See, Andrew Webster said contrary to that. Andrew Webster said that he felt, who's now coach of the Warriors, of course, he said he felt he's been ready for a number of years, but it's not just about taking any job.
No. Well, you don't jump at the first opportunity. But the things I mentioned before about Jason Riles, he lives in the area, so that's a plus. And he's also represented the club, so
he's a Dragons player.
He's a Dragons player, so he knows exactly what the organisation is about. He's familiar with a lot of people involved in the club. He knows what type of football they need, and he understands the community.
All right, text coming through on Craig Bellamy. This is a good text from Willow from Windsor. Boys, I'm a Panthers man, but it's a great day for rugby league when Craig Bellamy said he's going around again. I agree. See, I miss Des Hasler. Like, Des has dropped off the landscape. I miss Des. I would definitely miss Craig Bellamy. We missed Wayne Bennett for a year, didn't we?
Well, there's a
they're
question.
part of the furniture.
Yeah, there's a question around that for Cameron. Boys, Cameron, do you think Des still has what it takes? He was one of those coaches that had great battles with Bellamy during your career, Cam.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Like talking from experience as a player playing against Des Hasler coach footy sides, always well prepared, always tough to beat. I think Desi can offer plenty still. Of course.
Well, you don't lose it as a coach, do you?
No.
Like, the older you get doesn't mean that you're not a player. Your form doesn't drop away as a coach the older you get. In fact, you might get better as you get older.
I think the best proof of that, Brandy, is Wayne Bennett right now with the Dolphins.
Yeah.
And how they're
you just
competing.
keep learning, and you just keep fine tuning how you do things and how you approach things, and you keep fine tuning about what's important. You know what you don't get mixed up. You don't. You sort of. I think as a young coach, you could quite easily focus on things that aren't important. You could get caught up in a lot of things that aren't
everything.
real. Well, that's right. There are so many things
that are
to get
important,
caught up.
But everything, and you can't do anything 100%.
Yeah,
Which is what Paul McGregor said. Paul McGregor
deal
said
with
the Dragons.
what is important. You've got to try and, push aside what isn't important and focus on what the team needs.
Well, it makes it where a Frank Panisi in Melbourne, Cameron, is just so valuable. And Frank Panisi to everyone in rugby league is not necessarily well known, and they wouldn't even recognise him. But he's obviously had a very big job and role to play, and Craig Bellamy can basically say, you do your job, and then I can just do mine.
Yeah.
Frank looks after sort of everything. Can look after everything.
Yeah,
Have a hand in the lot.
Yeah, and that's been the case for quite some time now. I think it's what they've tried to do at the Melbourne Storm is try and take a lot of that stuff that Brandy was talking about, the work outside of what is just concentrating on preparing each individual player. They try and share that workload around with they offset it with football managers and assistants and all that type of stuff. So Craig can all he has to do when he arrives at training is sit down in his office, think about the day ahead, have the training session planned, meetings with individuals about their football and what happened on the weekend or what they need to do in preparation for the next game, and that's how he's able to do his job to his best ability.
All right, Cameron, now, direct question to you, and it needs a direct answer. Now, it is a New South Wales origin question.
Oh, okay.
If you are picking your side right now for game one, is Tom Trbojevic in the Cameron Smith selected New South Wales side?
I don't think so.
Okay. That's direct enough. What if he plays well next week? Like one game, he shows signs of his best form. It's Manly v Canberra next Sunday on the day that the side is picked. Would one game be enough to change your mind?
He's leaving it late.
It's the last,
it's the last game of the round,
Cameron. One game he hits his best form, and I'm talking like it doesn't have to be his absolute supreme, but it's a man of the match performance, Manly win. Would that be enough to change your mind?
Well, it puts the selectors in a difficult situation, doesn't it? Because he at Turbo's best, he's as good as any player in the comp. So if he shows you that he's up to that in that last game before selection, then is that enough to say, look, you're in? Because we believe we're going to put faith in you, and we believe you can produce that again in 10 days' time in the first Origin. So I think that puts enough doubt in your mind to actually sit down and have a long enough discussion whether he should be there or not. If he's quiet and doesn't get a lot of touches and not a lot of involvement, then I think the decision's made for you.
Okay, there's the Tom Trbojevic.
Okay, well, let's throw another one at him.
Okay.
While we're talking Origin.
Yeah,
and it's a Queensland question this
yes.
time. Kalen Ponga, outstanding second half yesterday.
Yeah.
And we've had a lot of chat on the text line about he's still not, but What did you think of that performance yesterday? I won't ask you whether he gets in the side or not.
Yeah.
What did you think of his form?
Oh, impressive. Really impressive, Brandy. I agree with all the comments made about Caelan's game yesterday. And he was just high involvement, really, isn't it? And that's what you look for from the key players is the high involvement. And the touches were pretty silky. When he had the football in hand and he took the opposition on, he come up with some great plays, some plays that we're used to seeing from him, particularly last year. So it's a little bit, it's in a similar boat to the previous question you asked me about Tom Trbojevic. Is that enough? The best one will be, the best person to ask it, of course, is Billy Slater. But I think it's a little reminder to everyone to say, hey, fellas, I'm still here. This is the quality that I can produce. And you only have to think back to last series. He was in Queensland's top 3 players across the 3 games.
Well, he's Queensland's best in the one that counted. I know
that's
they all
right.
count, but in the decider, he was magnificent.
Yep. Yep. And then you also got to think too, if he's playing State of Origin, he's playing with the number 1 jersey on his back. He's not in the front line. He's not playing up front where, a lot of people have said, oh, look, he's missing tackles and this sort of stuff. If Caelan Ponga has to make 10 tackles in Origin at fullback, then I think Queensland's got bigger issues than Caelan Ponga missing tackles.
And you know what? Even the other bloke's going so well. Reece Walsh.
Hamaso, Tabuai Fido.
Yeah, but Hamaso's he's going to get picked in the centres.
Yes,
so we heard. So we heard.
What's he saying?
Cameron, we have
picking
mail.
the Queensland team.
Cameron, mate, you laugh. We have very strong mail.
Yes.
The Hammer is going to be picked in the centres. Dane Gagai.
Right.
Misses out, Cameron. What's the chances? Dane Gagai. Thought you blokes were loyal.
Have you...
Pick and stick.
Has Billy been on the show, has he?
Ah, yeah,
No.
very good.
We just get mail. We got sauces, Cameron. Barbecue tomato. We got
Between
sauces,
the hours
mate.
of 6 and 7 this morning, we had some very strong mail.
Very strong.
Well, the
mail.
Hammer. Look, I can't deny the fact that he's been in fantastic form this year. Fantastic form. He's been playing the house down. And to be fair, he was involved in the squad all through last year's series as well. The Hammer and was great in that preparation. But there's a couple of blokes there that have been there and done it before. That I wouldn't sort of put a line through their name.
Yep. Yep. And that being Val Holmes and Dane Gagai.
Of course.
Who's Dane Gagai. I don't know how. Now, he hasn't missed an Origin game since, I think, 2015.
No, that's right.
Which means he's got some runs on the board. And every game, Dane Gagai, he aims up. Go, oh, wow. Wow.
And I'll tell you what,
Queensland.
you wind back 12 months ago, Dane Gagai gets picked for Queensland. He's in better form this year for the Newcastle Knights than what he was last year.
He was good yesterday too. Yep. Very good yesterday.
Here's a text from Jim. He says, great news about Bellyache staying one more year at the Storm, following in the footsteps of the likes of Kevin Sheedy, Alex Ferguson, both long-term coaches of clubs with success. But when they left coaching their respective clubs, those clubs have had little to cheer about. So it's like with every year, that's just one last point on that situation. With every year he stays, does it become tougher then
to replace him?
To replace, like the next person in is going to find it very difficult. I mean, 22-year reign at a club, and then you come in.
Is that off the top of your head, Vossy? Is that the longest?
Well, Wayne was on deck from the Broncos from
year
1988, but then went away.
That's right. I'm talking consecutive
Knights
seasons.
And Dragons, so I think he will. He'll be the most, won't he?
Yes.
He'll be the most.
Have to be, I would think.
I wonder if that played a part
in
his decision.
Well, he's always said he's not a career coach. And I've asked him before on the Fan on Fox League. I said,
I think it's a bit late to start another career.
No, that's right. but when you ask him, is coaching fun?
It's hard to deny it now.
He says, I've never loved it. He said with all sincerity, he's never loved it. Like, it's not, we love calling football. Like, Cameron, I'm pretty sure you're right. We love going along to that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Craig would not say he loves coaching. He will always stop short. No, not. I don't know what else he does.
I reckon he's telling you a fib there, Vossy.
Yeah. Okay, all right.
He's fibbing.
He's fibbing. Okay.
I'm Bronco wants to know, and he says, morning immortals, Ben Eichen finishing up at the Broncos. Is there a pool of GM of football candidates, and who do you think would be the front runner? So is there a pool of GMs that can be dragged in? No, that's a tough question on Bronco.
You don't have apprentice football managers at other clubs, not like assistant coaches. You don't have assistant managers of football, you'd have to go through an interview process.
Yep.
Like, I think Cameron Smith would make a good.
Oh,
I'll just put it
please,
there. I
come
mean,
on, mate.
why not? You're not at the, you're not the front man.
no.
But behind,
No. I enjoy my time
no.
with SEN and 9 too much.
All right. Okay.
Football manager, that's too much work, mate.
19 and a half minutes after 8. Another one before our first break. Pat Carrigan's sin binning the other night. Now, there's been so much happened since that. But that's an embarrassment for the game
It
that
is.
we have one set of rules. We do have the one rule book.
Well,
But
I do
between
remember
bunker
Graham
and match review,
Graham
they're not-
Annesley saying, "Well, no, he got on in one of his addresses over the last few weeks and said, well, it's not confusing because I think most people said, well, I think I know what a hip drop is." But two blokes standing there, the third bloke comes in, jumps on intentionally, to get him to ground. And I think that it all got mixed up in then everything. It's not black and white. Every tackle's different, some are momentum. So we need to separate, those two incidents. And we've said that for a long time. But, saying it's confusing and then Graham saying, well, no, it's not confusing. This is what you look for. Blah, 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 blah. Well, Graham,
Yes.
someone's confused out there and it's your officials.
That's right.
It's your officials. It's your bunker and your match review committee. See, Cameron, I'm of the belief, I'm not the former player like you blokes, but it's a non-negotiable. Sin binning offences cannot be subjective.
No,
That's
they can't
right.
be
They
guesswork.
have to be
No.
black and white.
Yes.
It
No.
either is or it isn't.
Yep.
Can't have different rules game to game.
Yes.
10 minutes in the bin. 10 minutes in the bin for Jaden Sullivan the other day. There was 16 points scored. Cowboys Dragons. That's the influence being reduced to 12 can have.
Yep.
So we can't have some hip droppers going to the sin bin and other would-be hip droppers not going or going and then cleared later. That just cannot be allowed to happen. What do we do, Cameron? What do we do?
Look, I'm not too sure. I think that there's a group of people out there that I think have a fairly clear understanding of what a hip drop is, but I don't think it's the officials. I really don't. Like I covered that game the other night, the Broncos Storm game, and when it happened, I nearly fell off my chair. When it come back from the bunker, I think it was Jared Sutton in the bunker too, who has been officiating the game for a long time.
Yeah.
A long time. He's one of our elite referees. But when he comes back and says, that's a hip drop and tells Todd Smith to put Patrick Carrigan in the bin, I just could not believe it. He almost, the contact on Asafa Solomona's leg was made nearly with the armpit. Like, please. Yeah, and I'll tell you what, like, to be fair to the official, like, Nelson Asafa Solomona, he contributed. Like, he threw his head back, grabbed his leg, and then played on.
Yes.
Like, the players are actually playing a huge part in their fellow players getting sent to the sin bin and causing this issue. So, boys, please don't go playing for penalties and staying behind and all this stuff. Like, come on, boys.
I saw Lockie Miller yesterday, and he was bringing a kick back.
Yep.
And I just can't remember the player that clipped him right across the face. Like, but it was just a hand.
Yes.
Just a hand.
Just a slap.
Lockie Miller just got up, played the ball. Now, he could have easily laid down, and it would have been a penalty because there was contact made, but it was very light, and it was only a little sort of clip. He got up, played the ball, nothing.
Yep.
Which was good on him. Well done.
I'll give you another player while we're dobbing in play. Tino Fasua-Malawi, every game now is claiming crusher tackle, and yesterday they said, Tino, no, mate.
No,
play the ball.
You
he
fell
did
back
it the
into
previous week. He did it the previous week, got a penalty, and then took 2 of the next 3 hit-ups.
Yep.
Now, that really ticks off the viewer and the fan.
Yep.
And yesterday the game caught up with Tino. So I'd just be saying to Tino, mate, maybe not.
Yep.
Maybe not play for that penalty all the time. 23 after 8. Plenty of questions for Cameron. They will come up straight after the break. Breakfast with Vossy and Brandy with the GOAT Cameron Smith. Thanks to Victor School and Sports Club Supplies, supplying schools and sports throughout Australia, victorsports.com.au. Just an injury update. Josh Allier dislocated shoulder at the game yesterday, Manly v Cronulla. More bad news there. If it is significant damage, he could be 3 or more months out, Josh Allier. Jared Wadia-Hargreaves suffered a pec strain, not a tear or a rupture. That's anywhere from 2 to 6 weeks. Sam Walker's now out for a few weeks, knee injury for the Roosters. So there's no call up for Sam Walker anytime soon. And Sean Lane, hamstring injury. at least 2 to 4 weeks for
That's a
Parramatta.
blow. That's a blow because they're short back rowers anyway, aren't they? They've struggled this year.
They've signed Andrew Davey from Canterbury, and he gets rushed straight into the side. That's all happened. But that's all for Victor Sports. You can check them out on their website, victorsports.com.au, supplying schools and sports all throughout Australia.
Yes. Minjie Lee. Now, we've had a great morning for Australian golf. Jason Day won the Byron Nelson. Minjie Lee, the Cognizant Founders Cup, is 2 shots clear with 3 holes to play. So go Minjie. Start the chant.
Okay,
Minjie.
Cameron, here are some questions for you on the Edgewater Homes text line, 0457 736 736. We'll play a bit of fast money to get through these. Morning, boys. Can you ask Cam any truth about Queensland playing Cameron Munster at fullback and Hunt and DC in the halves with Granted Hooker and Ponga or Walsh at 14? There's a bit in that. Munster, any chance fullback?
No, don't think so.
There we go.
No.
There we go.
Yeah.
Good answer. This one, due to Ponga's head knock history, Cameron, if Queensland pick him at fullback, does that change the bench? Phil of Umina asking that question. Do you have to, because these days an HIA can happen, flick of the fingers and off you go for 15 minutes. Do you have to change your bench with Ponga there?
Oh, look, I don't think so. I think there's plenty of versatility in the Queensland side. If you're looking at last year's team, we just spoke about one player there in particular, Cam Munster. There can be a reshuffle. Like Munster can go to fullback. You got Ben Hunt in the side as well, who can go into the half. So plenty of versatility there. I'm not too sure which way Billy and the selectors will go with their bench, but I don't think they'll go with an outside back on the
Kurt
bench.
Capewell's been great cover for Queensland.
Yep.
because he can play centre.
Centres,
Like
yep.
he's a good utility. Boys, can you get Cam Smith's evaluation of the Roosters? Their lineup, the backs, the halves, the forwards. That's Bruce of Cronulla.
Yeah, well, I was out at the ground. I watched this game live, and they look confused. They look confused and frustrated, and a whole lot of things all combined into one. We're just not seeing any sort of fight in the Roosters at the moment. Like, I know that Penrith Panthers, that was the best game that they played all season, in my opinion. They were fast, they were powerful, played very clinical style of footy, which we've become used to with the Penrith Panthers. But they lacked energy. The Roosters. They were
good for 10. They were good for 15, and then they just dropped off a cliff.
Yeah, well, the opening exchanges were pretty good. They sort of matched it with Penrith, but Penrith just started breaking them down. And the ease in which they broke the Roosters' line, that was the concerning thing for me. That was the concerning thing.
Well, Cameron, the Roosters' attack now in terms of points scored, second lowest tally in the league through 11 rounds, and now they're conceding 48 points. So
yes,
it's big issues. We will go to the news, come home with a big last half hour with Cameron Smith, the GOAT, on Breakfast with Vossy Brandy.
We're here for Bryden's Lawyers. Unable to work due to injury or illness, contact Bryden's Lawyers. You can have your say on the open line, 1300 01 1170, or the Edgewater Homes text line, 0457 736 736. Spanky says on the text, whenever rules are black and white, commentators demand common sense. It's not easy. Stop getting hung up on single calls. It's a hard job, but this has been your life and you struggle to explain them. Thank you, Spanky. Can you be specific about which rules? Are we talking about the hip drop?
If we're talking about the hip drop, as I said, a sin binning offence has to be black and white. It cannot be inconsistent from one game to the next.
No.
It has to stand the test of the grand final.
Yep.
Would the player be sin binned to the grand final? If your answer's no, well, then he can't be sin binned in round 12 or round 15. It has to stand the grand final test.
Yeah.
Well, and we need to know.
Was there a black and white difference between Horsburgh and Latrell Mitchell from the week before?
Well, no,
on Harry Grant.
Now that's a problem.
Yeah.
And one of our listeners
asked
asking
a great
that question.
example. Horsburgh. Yeah, Horsburgh. Why did the question from one of our texters is, why did Horsburgh get 10 minutes, but the Eels got the penalty?
Well, they ruled that Madison's involvement first was out of order. So he was penalised.
So the Canberra got the penalty.
Corey took it into his own hands.
Yep.
So that's where the penalty went. But Cameron, I'll ask the question straight out. Is Latrell Mitchell a koala? As in protected species, the referees. Well, are they? Well, they had to be. How did they miss that the previous week in Magic Round on Harry Grant?
Well, look, I agree. I won't go as far to say that he's a protected species in our game.
Yes.
But they definitely missed that.
Well, it was a penalty.
I think we all watch
No,
that.
they didn't miss it. They saw it and they refused to make a.
Well, that's
they
what I
didn't
mean.
penalise
They missed the
Come
opportunity
on,
to
make a
penalise him.
call.
Yeah.
I think everyone there at the ground on the day when that happened, like everyone said, oh look, that's at least got to be a penalty against Latrell. We've seen people sin bin for similar actions on the field before, but nothing. They just let it go.
Yes, that was black and white. Morning, boys. Enjoy the show. Braden of Perth says, Smithy, don't give Brandy too much information about our mighty Maroons.
Maroons. Haha. There we go.
I've been marooned.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. On the
what about that, eh?
on Maroon Island.
Ditching Gagai, hey? Amazing. Yeah, you blokes. You can see. Now, question for Cam. Morning VBs and the GOAT. Cameron, touching on the Eels, how do you handle that period when you're playing well enough, but it just hasn't turned for you? Let's start at there. They just can't take a trick at the moment. They copped Chris Butler 2 weeks ago, and then when they do get one of the top referees, Grant Atkins, he has out in the worst game of the year, a 10-3 penalty count. How do you rally the troops in times like these? They seem to have become increasingly frustrated with themselves and individuals within the team. Your thoughts? Aaron asking a lot of questions there about Parramatta.
Yeah. Well, it's a good question, Aaron, because it is difficult at times when, particularly when your preparation's good and you feel as though that you've got a good game plan, you've trained well all week, you're feeling good about your game, but then you get there and just nothing happens. We had a similar period in 2012. You remember when we lost 5 in a row, fellas? Yeah. We went on to win.
Now, you know what, Cam, just because, and I've heard Cooper Cronk talk about this too.
Yeah.
And it's the only time, but it's the only time you blokes can go back to over a 20-year period. All Melbourne players go back to that 2012. We were really bad. But that was 5 weeks out of 10 years. Come on. There's got to be some other time where things weren't great.
Well, you know what? There was very history will show, Brandy. There was very few times where we'd lost consecutive games, and if we'd lose 2. Like it'd be back page news. Yeah, it'd be like the Melbourne Storm. They've lost 2 games.
When you
in a
lost
row.
5 in a row, that was unexplainable.
End of the world. So, but the thing with us in that time, and it's similar to what I was just explaining there. Like our training sessions were great. The energy was great. Execution at training was very good. But we get to the game and things just would not happen for us. Like we couldn't hold on to the football. We get let's just say a few 50-50 calls go the other way. And it just seemed to compound on the way we were feeling week on week. The one thing that we couldn't change, though, was the work that you put into your preparation and just trying to simplify things. I think that went a long way to turning the tide and turning things our way.
Parramatta.
I agree, and I spoke about this. We spoke about this on the weekend in regards, and that's when Cooper brought up the 5-week, back in 2012, and I said, well, I certainly had periods at Penrith where things weren't happening, but and it almost comes back. You bring it back to the simplest thing where you go out with the attitude of 5 hit-ups for a kick, chase, tackle. That's you don't talk about anything else. No, there's no discussion about anything. You forget plays, moves. It's just that simple.
Run hard, tackle hard.
That is it. And you bring it back to the simplest form of the game.
Parramatta, by the way, 6 line breaks to 2 in the game. They had 6 line breaks to 2. They had the 10-3 penalty account against them, and they conceded 3 tries off kicks. That's a breakdown of the game. Let's go to the open line. Roland of Penrith has called in Cameron. You can say good day to Roland.
Roland, how are you, mate?
Hey, Vossy. Good, Cam, and how are you, Brandy?
Yeah, good, Roland.
I was listening with interest to your comments about Trbojevic and Ponga in regards to form. I've got to tell you, I'm 60 years old, and one thing about New South Wales commentators that has frustrated me over the years is we pick sides, and it's always form. As a 60-year-old, I keep thinking back to the Queensland side, and one guy's name that irks me to this day is Dale Shearer. Played like a bastard at Manly, got picked in the Queensland side and rip us to shreds. And there was also Peter Jackson and Chris Close would do the same thing. And yet they never were in form. Yet put a maroon jersey on them and off would go the head and on would go a pumpkin and they'd kill us. So I'm not, if Trbojevic is fit and his hamstring's good, as much as I hate Manly, I'd put him in the side.
All righty, Roland. Yeah, that's certainly a way to look at it. And you're right. Queensland have done it over the years. I don't know if New South Wales, if I can think of anyone over the past that was playing reserve grade and got picked in the New South Wales side and then performed. Someone might enlighten us over the years that Origin, and that certainly happened. Not recently, did it? For even recently, Queensland, you're not picking someone that's playing like a busted out of New South Wales Queensland Cup to play State of Origin. But yeah, it has happened, Roland, over the years. Absolutely.
All right. Thank you for the call, Roland. Brian of Belmore is there talking about the Dragons game, Brandy.
Brian, hello.
Hello. How you going, Greg? Andrew? Andrew, you done the St George game on Saturday afternoon, didn't you?
Dragons Cowboys, yes I did. Yep.
What do you think about the Southern sin bin?
The Sullivan sin binning, there were circumstances. It was like a game of Twister gone wrong. Seriously, and it was a massive tangle of bodies, and I feel as if the bunkers should have intervened and said, no, there's circumstances here. Sullivan's at the bottom of a tangle with a player's leg. I forget the Dragon who had his leg caught up. Was Jack Bird? Was it? Had the leg caught up. In felt. So it was just a mess. Yeah. It was a mess. And Sullivan, I would defend him till the cows come home, could not get out of that situation. There was no way he could roll over to the side because he was caught. He was trapped. Circumstances. So, Brian, I thought it was a very harsh call. What did you think?
It was. And also the Ben Hunt try.
Ben Hunt try, no try on the... I suppose they're being consistent, yes.
And also the short kick-off. What was the short kick-off for?
The short kick-off? What was the short...
the Cowboys done a short kick-off, and it went out on the full, and the Cowboys got the penalty. I couldn't work that one out.
I'm just trying to think. There was that the one where they changed all that yesterday. I call so much football over the weekend. I did 4 games over the weekend, including a schoolboy game.
Sometimes those...
Brian, I'll check. I'll go back to the tape. That's some homework for me, Brian. I'll say this, though. I thought the Dragons were terrible.
Yeah,
there you go.
So there.
I didn't think the Cowboys were great.
That,
I thought the Dragons were terrible. So if they won
got
13 on 13,
couple of tough calls.
13 on 13, they went very close to winning.
Yep.
But I thought they were terrible in the wash-up. Thank you for the call. Woo.
Can you remember this?
No, I can't remember.
Can you remember? Well, we're going to wind the clock back 12 years. Michael Jennings, 2011, playing reserve grade, got picked in Origin.
Is that right?
Wow. I don't know. This is just text.
Really?
Text coming through.
That can't be
Game
possible.
one.
No. Kristen Inu got picked from one game for New Zealand. Anyway, 16 minutes to 9.
Dumped Penrith centre Michael Jennings has vowed to repay the faith to Blues coach Ricky Stewart after being called up to play for New South Wales in the opening game of State of Origin in 2012. Jennings' selection, just 24 hours he played in the New South Wales Cup for Windsor Wolves.
Well, there you go.
Windsor Wolves.
Well done to our listener. Well done. Great memory on that one.
Backing up the text.
Good stuff. A reminder that SEN merch is now available. Get your exclusive SEN branded T-shirts at merch.sen.com.au. Now, for Pull Up Your Socks, for Underworks, for all-day comfort, everyday quality and everyday style, it has to be all-day socks by Underworks. Do you have a nomination, Cameron?
Yes, I do. It's a pretty straightforward one for me this week. It's the Roosters. They conceded 24 points in both halves against Penrith. And I mentioned earlier, Penrith were very, very good. It's the best game that they played all season, particularly Jerome Luai. He really put a stamp on that game, particularly in the second 40 minutes. But looking at their lineup, looking at their roster, their 17 that they put out the other night on paper, they're a much better footy side than what they showed. So the Roosters, pull up your socks, fellas.
Well done. Brandy, pull up your socks for Underworks.
We've got Rouse Hill Raiders sent a text in. He said the refereeing on Thursday night was diabolical. And that includes in the bunker as well. So
agreed.
Little socks aren't long, but little short socks. Pull up your socks. Just little ones.
Put your
just little baby
up.
ones.
Yeah, okay. And pull up your socks. I'm going to go outside the sphere of rugby league to NBA. Ja Morant. Mate, seriously. Mate.
Ja.
The gun. Like the guns. Mate, do you have to... Cameron... Thank you for Underworks for sponsoring the segment. If a rugby league player went on social media just holding a gun, could you? I know different laws in America, gun laws and all the rest, but can you imagine just a photo appeared? What do you think would happen? Hypothetical for you. A gun, an image of a gun.
Well,
holding a gun.
Well, particularly a handgun, right? They're illegal in Australia. Like it's just, mate,
bringing the game into disrepute.
Tear the contract up. tear the contract up.
In trouble.
Ja Morant twice in a matter of months has done it. And the first time he said he learnt something. He'd learnt from the incident and then goes and does it a few months later.
Yeah, well,
There we go.
Remember what happened to the boys, the Fox and Latrell? They were
Well, that was a criminal matter. That was a criminal. That was a charge, police charges, yeah.
And
so,
they were on private property. And I think Latrell's licensed. And
Yes.
they got in a lot of trouble still. So imagine holding a handgun in a car. Jesus.
well, in the NBA, he's still looking at, he could be looking at 50 games.
Wow.
He could be sidelined. He got sidelined for 8 for the last one.
Yep.
And now he's done it again a matter of a few months later.
Yeah.
50 might be, give him 50 match suspension. We've got heaps. We're going to run out of time, Cameron. Sadly, boys, could you get Cameron Smith's evaluation of the Roosters lineup? Backs, halves, forwards, all of that. We've done that for Bruce Cronulla. There's lots of, there's other people asking about the Roosters. If Sam Walker was fit, would he come straight back in? I don't know. I don't know how it all works now at the Roosters.
You have to, don't you? You got to put him back in.
But he's not fit now, so there's the
Well,
problem.
yeah, he's got the knee injury, hasn't he?
Yeah.
Drewy Hutchinson in.
Yeah.
Olsen Filipina was someone that was always picked out of reserve grade to play for the Kiwis. Little bit different.
Yeah.
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 But he did do a good job whenever he pulled a black jersey on.
Well, the most famous one was Big Artie, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Oh, for Origin.
right.
Yeah, for Origin.
100%. 100%. Cameron, you've had a great flying hour. You're in good form this week. And we look forward to your thoughts on the New South Wales Origin team come next week. Can't wait.
Yeah.
Well, they'll be named. Will they be named, Brandy?
Yeah.
By this time
by
next
8
week.
a.m.?
Yeah, we will. Yes.
Sunday,
Yes.
isn't it?
Sunday night.
Well, there you
Sunday
go.
All right, Cameron, and you Queenslanders, you'll hold back your team until Monday.
It'll still be under
Behind a
wraps.
curtain or something like that.
I won't have any idea of who's being picked.
Thank you, Cameron.
Yeah, thank you, Cameron. See you next
See
week.
you next week.
See you, mate.
Breakfast with Vossy and Brandy.